to call myself a composer is it's a new thing. There is for me a little bit of a void. I mean, I decided to go on this exploration of art music for piano solo from the Caribbean. And first I thought I'm going to write a piano concerto. But going from one piece that I wrote when I was 14 years old, and it won a silver medal in the Jamaica Music Festival, it was sort of an impressionistic piece called The Enchanted Sea. And that's my only experience writing a piece for piano, except for exercises that I did in school. Then I decided I want to write this piano concerto, and I got started, and it's still in the works. But what has happened in the interim, in the last year and a half, I've transcribed 8 Jamaican folk songs for piano solo. And I use the term transcription in its technical sense. Transcription literally takes the original as it exists, and I don't do that much with it, except, well, you'll hear it and you can decide. I transcribe it for solo piano. I would like to think that it creates a feeling embedded in the Jamaican culture, the Jamaican psyche. If you might think of it as Jamaican empinsamkeit. It's that sensibility that is part of the Caribbean culture. Here is one of my 8 transcriptions. Why 8? Because 8 is also the Anansi story. Anansi is the spider with the 8 legs. Yeah. So, but this one is based on This Long Time Gal and Sly Mongoose. Forgive the singing. I kind of sang in this one, so I sang the song. This transcription combines 2 Jamaican folk songs, which work together very well musically. The first, This Long Time Gal We Never See, is self-explanatory if you understand Patois, the Jamaican dialect. Essentially it says, we haven't seen each other in such a long time. Let's get together. The somewhat ominous reference to the John Crow or turkey vulture, a very important symbol in Jamaican folklore, implies that death is just around the corner, so perhaps we should get together very soon. Time is short. This long time, girl, we never see you. Come make me hold your hand. This long time, girl, we never see you. Come make me hold your hand. Feel head jump cross, sit up on tree top, pick off your blossom. Make me hold your hand, girl. Make me hold your hand. This long time, girl, we never see you. Come make me walk and talk. This long time, girl, we never see you. Come make me walk and talk. Feel head jump cross, sit up on tree top, pick off the blossom. Make me hold your hand, girl. Make me hold your hand. This long time, girl, we never see you. Come make me wheel and turn. This long time, girl, we never see you. Come make me wheel and turn. Feel head jump cross, sit up on tree top, pick off the blossom. Make me hold your hand, girl. Make me hold your hand. Make me wheel and turn till we tumble down. Make me hold your hand, make me hold your hand. Make me wheel and turn till we tumble down. Make me hold your hand.
I brought back memories of my days in Jamaica.
Sly Mongoose. Sly Mongoose exposes an illicit affair using euphemistic language. For those of you who aren't familiar with the mongoose, it looks like a squirrel, but it is a carnivore. It's sort of the Jamaican equivalent of a fox. It is cunning, and it preys on chickens, not to mention snakes. Sly mongoose, your name gone abroad. Sly mongoose, your name gone abroad. Mongoose sleeping up bed where the kitchen she'd steal out one of him righteous chicken, put it in her ink waistcoat pocket. Sly mongoose, sly mongoose, your name gone abroad. Sly mongoose, your name gone abroad. Edward went to go see him daughter, find mongoose playing with that garter. Edward hit him just where he ought to. Sly mongoose, sly mongoose, your name gone abroad. Sly mongoose, your name gone abroad.
I'm from Jamaica. I'm a composer. All right, to give in a nutshell, let me see. I had an aunt. My aunt was a music teacher, so she spotted I'm an adopted child. She spotted me and said I had a good ear, and told my mother to send me to violin lessons, and started from there. Started composing when I was 11, apparently. By the time I was 14, I decided I wanted to compose, not play, right? I mean, even though I showed a fair amount of promise on the violin, by the time I got to 20 years old, came out of high school, 17 or 18, came out of high school and went into a recording studio. And that's when I learned about, more about pop music and the technology part about recording. And then went to, when I was 22, I think, my mother tricked me into going to college. So I went to BU, to Boston University, for 2 weeks because I hated the course was too straight for me. I ended up at Berkeley, where I wanted to study composition and electronic music. So going to a jazz college all of a sudden. I mean, it was all there, actually. Everything that I needed was there, and I really did benefit from it. But in the meantime, though, I had all of a sudden, somebody called me up somewhere just about at age 20 and said, would you like to do a jingle? Of course, my immediate response is, what's a jingle? And cut a long story short, that became 30 years, basically, of work for music for advertising. And in many ways, that has sort of shaped how I view music, you know, writing music to order. Came out of college and came back, went back to Jamaica instead of staying there, staying in the USA. And I taught at the School of Music a little bit, but I had a thriving business with the music for advertising. And then in the meantime, I did here and there little art music, you know, a 20-minute piece for the National Dance Company, a couple of musicals here and there, you know, and somewhere around, the first thing in terms of instrumental music, I think, was a commission from the American Wind Symphony Orchestra, which is a wind band, a wind orchestra, symphonic wind ensemble and percussion. And I wrote a piece for them that turned out better than I thought. And then I got various things after that, revived string quartet, and it came on like that. Sort of, you get the picture. In later life, I went back into teaching, mainly because I thought I'd, you know, put something back. And now that there is less work, you know, I have gray hair, so they think I'm an old man. I'm doing more teaching, so I've ended up at UA lately to try and revive, you know, make a lively music scene there. I don't know how successful I'll be. I've been writing stuff since then. I've been trying to do this reggae opera thing. The reggae opera name is my wife's idea. I just wanted to write an opera about the life of a dub poet in Jamaica who had a, you know, one of those almost classic storylines, a tragic storyline. He came up from very humble circumstances. He showed a lot of promise, got a break. He was at the forefront of this new trend of dub poetry, what they call dub poetry. That's doing poetry with some kind of rhythmic accompaniment, usually drums, and it, you know, a sort of chanting style. And he was in the forefront of that. And he got more and more popular. Chris Blackwell of Island Records, the Bob Marley guy, took him to England. He did a tour. He came back to Jamaica, and his head went. He started to go a bit funny in the head, and he started to walk the street and do erratic things. And he lived a little way outside of Kingston. He used to walk to the place, which is, you know, about 12 miles. What is that? 20 kilometers, and there and back. And one of these times he walked past a political meeting, and he was always one of those anti-establishment people. So he denounced the meeting so badly that he disrupted the meeting. The meeting ended, right? And he went home, and he came back the next day, and as he was passing the place, some of the political thugs said, "See the boy there?" And they stoned him to death. So, you know, trust somebody like me to say that's a perfect opera, you know. So I wanted to, so this is what, that mighty reggae opera. It was just supposed to be an opera, you know. If it was opera, it would be fine. If it was a musical, it would be fine. If it, you know, if it was reggae, it was fine. But she came up with the idea of a reggae opera. And it sounds great, you know, reggae opera, you know. Yes, it's a good marketing tool, but what the hell do you write? And I've been wrestling with that ever since, you know. Everybody said, "No, man, it's no problem. You can do it." I don't know what I'm doing. So, you know, no, it's like, it's, no, nobody appreciates my analogy about writing this thing. But it is a big problem. And as a matter of fact, even though it's supposed to have been written, I keep tweaking it. You know, I've written about more than 40 songs already, 40 pieces of 40 arias, whatever you want to call them, and I'm still not quite happy. We've had some structural problems, so it's taken a very long time to do. However, we did 8 songs, and a lot of people liked it. So I don't know. Just like you said earlier on, if people like it, hey, praise the Lord. You know? I don't know why you like it, but So, yeah.
One afternoon he disrupted a political meeting and encountered some political thugs who stoned him to death.
In a place where reggae music is a total, strong power which has gone worldwide as a world music. So then, of course, to do classical music or classical derived music, it's a good challenge.
It's really very, very good, because I think it's taking a unique element within our cultural sort of identity.
I honestly think, from what I've heard and what I've read so far, that the production one just completely can work anywhere, can work in any country, on any stage.
Yes, the tunes are catchy. Yes, the tunes are easy to be liked, and yet the execution and the orchestration of it's very, very sophisticated music, which actually people will be surprised that it comes out of Jamaica.
Is classical music relevant to the Caribbean? Yes, it is very relevant to the Caribbean for the simple reason that classical music is a poetic expression of our everyday lives, and it is as valid as any other music. The difference between classical music and commercial music is very simply that it doesn't have the pressure of the chorus. It's like the poet, who can sit and reflect on life around them, and you can express that in music. And we need to have that space of expression in music to help define who we are as a region. And that is as valid as any music that comes from any culture. That's the only reason that we continue to practice classical music.
You're looking
This book do what you say? I can't another one Tuesday. Old man, okay, a hint. Eyes why it's still pending. I will not make a hint.
On second viewing, he's starting to get it. This book better than a line of credit. Cricket stamps and football scores, both a dose and a whole lot more. But the dates are wrong. It's saying the 8th, today the 5th. It's ahead of the date. A book that tells the future.
This ain't no play. Come on with me, what you say? Teach me how to make it play. Come on, star boy. I give you a carrier if you come. A pencil fever, shut the rum. What did a girl say? Girls looking for me too. She be flexible, don't never make a win. Up in Parliament, got me a place. Couple of days, it's all slow down the pace. Pretty, make you think you're eating tanty food. But she ain't looking like tanty, she looking real good. What she cooking there?
Cuckoo, callaloo, coconut bake.
Sometimes she even cook up a snake.
Any grub?
Rum punch and rum. We even got Mountain Dew, you want some?
Angostura and white oak.
Anything to smoke?
You wanna catch it? If that's your thing, we got ganja, man. Now you're cooking with
That's what we talking about.
The way the fiddle and the way the book. 2 days spent lining, then come a third. That vendor, he keep his word. He wake up Starboy as soon as it lights, he say, you ready? And Starboy say, right. Boy, laissez la bon temps rouler. They laugh and say, have a good night, get in charge in the castle till that sky turn light. Yeah, then be good. But my head feel like wood. Other than that, though, you got no complaints. And Starboy say, no, into the Benz then and off they go. But Starboy head spinning, he still half asleep, and that Benz turned into a Jeep.
Starboy hanging on for his life. The road there, it's steep. He look out and they getting high, and before he know it, they in the sky. He holding on with all his might. He green in the face and his knuckles is white. Starboy here stand in on end door. Once you hook John the man, he thinking this the end. Higher they go and over the hill until all go quiet and time stand still. He open one eye. Let's go at the door. And then everything is as it will before.
Here we is, we home at last. There, Mrs. Gray, making mass. She on her gallery, hello there. Never mind, no, she don't hear their killer. Booksy and Lil Joe.
round boy. As he see in a dream his girl in the backyard. She whining and grinding and moving her lips. She got the most delicious lips, but she always talks like a thing. She will pass with a shallow boy in sun. She a princess, the kind of a queen, and when she see him, she starts to scream. Yeah, he gets in it now,
It's not
boy.
too cold
It was
there.
yes, he
More like a yeah.
more like a yeah.
But what's that he sees down at her feet? A little girl looking so sweet, saying, up mama, who that man? Everything quiet, no step for the child. Who that man, mama? She say looking wild. Who that man, mama, who that is? That's his woman, but the girl ain't his.
Yeah, he gets in it now, boy. It's real clear.
It wasn't 3 days he gone, but 3 years.
At the end of it, give up the one thing that was mine. He gave me food, and he gave me high, and he hung me out to dry. He said to himself, why do you care what I think? Why do? Give him a wink. All gone now, my girl and my axe, man plant and save an axe. They think I'm a ghost, you walking dead. I think I go out of my head. I listen to him. Why I keep waiting? Why do? I give him a wink. All gone, my girl and my axe.
You forget all I said? What you done with the book bound in red?
You're taking your gangster, act like one, walking around with a toy gun. You want to get their attention? Get your real one. Ladies and gentlemen, talking now, son. Now listen up. Where that book? Go on, have a look.
That book's worth a fortune, you hear? Don't lose it, keep it near. Now let's be clear. This is mine here, that's yours there. So we square.
of stupidness going on, like I said. But Starboy believed him and the book got read. The book meant money, more than a man could want. He forget about his violin. He got from his aunt. He on the road buy and sell, but he dead inside an empty shell.
Still, he remember that simpler life. Without the bling, without the strife. There hope for him yet?
Don't know how.
What you think about Starboy now?
Best you sit up straight and call me man. I know the one thing you want, it be given you by your aunt. Yeah man, I got it here, the one thing you hold there. That's right boy, you know me. Nothing for nothing though, ain't gonna be free. Price for everything, that's what I say. Go on boy, let's hear you play. I own you, boy. You hear what I say?
Because in a way, the more we talk about identity as composers and so on, it makes me think that it's kind of like chicken and egg situation, where you have a bunch of composers who emerge from a land, and they all speak a certain language, and the way you speak your language and the sounds that are around you affect the way that you write. Yes. Your entire environment affects what you write, and those people get called Bahamian composers because they all come from this country from which this music is coming from, or they get called Hungarian composers, or they get called German composers. And I think that's where the identification, the classification, I'm just kind of like throwing things out here. The bottom line is basically, as everybody's been saying, that as a composer or as an artist, you can't help the way that you write. You're going to express yourself whatever way you write. Nevertheless, we are affected by the way we speak our language. We might all be speaking English, but we accent it differently. The way you speak it is different than the way I speak it. And so we hear things, we hear rhythms differently. When I was training as a classical guitarist, my guitar teacher said to me, don't try to be a European composer, don't try to be a European musician, because the way you play music is what you hear, and you hear it differently to what's written on the score. And it was the first time anybody had ever said that to me. And that's when I started thinking about that whole thing of identity.
Next, we're going to hear from Carlos Carrillo Cotto, originally from Puerto Rico and now assistant professor of music at the University of Illinois.
So thank you for having me here. Excuse, I think I'm the only one who English is second language. It's not my first language, so forgive my accent. And I guess I am representing the Spanish-speaking Caribbean. So I could talk briefly about me, but about the music I want to present. But can we hear one piece and then I can talk about it? Do you have all the? My music is mostly abstract. Like I don't use that much tonal music. It's mostly atonal, and that means that the system that I use to compose music is actually called post-tonal music, the theory. And it's I don't have to get into it, but it would sound a little bit different from what we hear tonal music, tonal stuff. But it still works, so I can make sense through other means. And I think it will make more sense if I just play the piece. The ones I have here, I think are the ones that, the question of identity once came in a panel that I was many years ago. And I love what you say, because basically I feel the same way, like, I'm from the Caribbean, I will come out, And there's something, and I think in my music, no matter what I do, how abstract it gets or whatever, there's something there that is, based on these lands in this part of the world. So the film will come up more out in these pieces, but let's hear and then we can comment. Will you? The movie was for trio, violin, cello, and piano, and I bet you could sense some of the rhythms that, and most of them come from salsa music because it's close to me, and that's what just come out. And in this piece in particular, the language was less of what I told you about. This was mostly concerned, and I was trying to do something with it. But it just come out. It's present there, and I'm pretty happy with it. Even when sometimes it seems that I am trying not to hide it, but mix with other things, with other mediums and other sounds, because I think, as you mentioned, I'm trying to be creative. That's all, and I'm a Puerto Rican composer, and I'm just trying to create new music that will sound great, that will work, and that will be significant, that will mean something to me and to others. The next piece is based on a poem by the Cuban poet Nicolás Guillén, and that's the one called Como si fuera la primavera. I don't know if you know the poem. The poem is called Canción. And in this series, I was trying to take poems from different parts of the world and then writing music inspired on the poems. And the poem is very abstract in the way it starts. It's a de que callada madera se me dentro estoy sonriendo como si fuera la primavera yo muriendo. And it's about these things that may come but never come, and so the music is started like that. But at some point, I started this rhythm that is a clear clave, and the clave is the most. There are many timelines in Africa, but the timeline that we know as the clave in the Caribbean is actually the most common in Africa. And there is other opinions in the Caribbean about where it comes from. It's actually the most common in Africa. So I use it. But because this poem was about these things that are avoided, the clave in the salsa has to be in a steady pulse in a very particular place. So what I did, I put it in the middle and then put everything in 5/4 and cross everything so it's steady. So everybody's playing against this because it was about these things that never come. So you can play the very beginning, but then move forward like 2 minutes or so. Is clarinet, bass clarinet, cello, and percussion. And the combination is unusual, but it was a commission, and they told me, this is what we have. And I was like, okay. First I was like, okay, this is kind of strange, but then I started working with it. I was just fantastic, because it forced you to, what can I do with two clarinets, you know? So you can hear here the third ethereal part, right? It's like floating and all these sounds that come. And it's not reflecting exactly what the poem says, but it's my feelings about the poem or what it says. It's there, but it's not supposed to be there because it's in 4 and then everybody's in 5. And the kind is doing a solo on top, but it's another timeline. But it's very delicate, you know. And now I feel like it's like that's for the Caribbean. That's like a meditation. It's kind of in the air, you know, and maybe that's the effect that I wanted to create. But I it's not that often that I put the timeline like that clear in a piece of music. But in this one I need it, and it just felt natural, and I felt happy with it. And the last piece I'm gonna play is the next Will the Quiet Time Comes, and that one is for piano and cello. And it was commissioned by Concert Artists Guild. And it was really fast. It's really stormy at the beginning. That is also part of the series from poems, and it's based on a German poem called In der Fremde by Joseph von Eichendorff. Looking at German poems. But I read the poem and I was like, this is nice because it's in a song by Schumann. And I was studying Schumann, and then I was like, oh, that's a nice poem. And I looked at the translation, and in the middle it say this line in German, "Wie bald kommt die stille Zeit," that means "Will the quiet times come?" And I was that's pretty nice, you know, the image that. So I just took the line and wrote the piece, and the poem have these 2 parts. Like one is really like this agony about life and about wishing that you will come to a rest. So the piece starts very fast, and then it goes to a second part that is very slow, and then the piece ends. But in the first part, I was working with this material that was really loud in the piano, and the cello was really high. Every cellist who sees the piece gets scared. And I wish I could show the score. Like I remember the piece was going to be playing in this concert with this orchestra. You know, they have a chamber series. And I entered the office of the orchestra to get something, and then I hear some people talking in a room, and then somebody say, "This is impossible, this is too high." And then I bet that's my piece. Who's this Carrillo guy? He was the principal cellist complaining about the piece. You will hear when you hear the video, you will hear why. It sounds like a violin, but it's actually a cello. And but I needed that intensity, that energy. But then when I went to a second part of that energy, of course I went back to my salsa, you know, sound. And you will hear in the piano part all this, you know, what probably in Cuba they call guajeo. So the language, the harmony is something else, but you will hear this all these rhythms that are just basic part of playing salsa piano. But isn't this part, I was actually having fun putting this harmony that doesn't belong to this salsa music with all these patterns. So I was just thinking about a pattern, and I was like, okay, great, put it here. And then there's one part that do the tam tam ting that usually there's a solo part for the timbales. But then I play in the piano that do this movement that is insane. That basically he's doing tan tan ting, and when he do the outside movement, he play the last part and top part of the piano, and the chord is in the middle. So you have to do this head gesture of jumping to the outside and then to the middle, and it's very hard to do. And the pianist was having a hard time, but then they just practice and do it. But it was to put, I guess, it's a sensation of energy, and that's how I sing the salsa music in my music, and then putting in this music that is something else, just mixing them. And I was happy with the results.
I'm here because I actually work in Trinidad. I've been at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, their Academy for the Performing Arts, for the last 3 years. And we were actually brought over to Trinidad by the then government to form a national philharmonic orchestra, which the project was actually changed subsequently to that. And so instead of having a large orchestra, we are now a group of 10 musicians, and we also form the teaching faculty at the Academy for the Performing Arts. And it's a fantastic team of people, very creative bunch. And Caitlin Kaminga, who wrote the libretto for Dominique's piece, Jab Malassi, is one of my colleagues and a great friend. So we've come up with lots of projects during our time in Trinidad. And during that time, because we have such an unusual ensemble, we have 5 string instruments, trombone, French horn, flute and 2 percussion. Our repertoire was strictly limited, to say the least. And so we were trying to find pieces that have different permutations of the instruments we have. And in fact, one of my focuses of being here today is to try to see if I can persuade some of our composers on the panel to see if we might be able to showcase their work in Trinidad, because there's a real hunger for art music in Trinidad amongst the faculty musicians and also amongst our students, actually, who are required as part of their program to perform Caribbean art music. So as a result of our strange instrument combinations, I thought, well, this is an opportunity for a composer, and I started writing some pieces. And one of the pieces that we're going to hear a sample of is a selection of portraits of carnival characters, traditional carnival characters. And Jab Malassi, the focus of Dominique's piece, is one of the carnival characters, as are some of the other ones that I chose in my suite. And if we just maybe just start with the Carnival Bat and the Moon. Now, because identity and music, for me, obviously I'm not from the Caribbean, it presents an interesting challenge. And what I've become particularly interested in is the question of, if I use starting points from the local culture, from Trinidad, can I develop a style that feels both true to me, but also relevant to local audiences? And that's a question that I'm sort of probing at the moment with my pieces. So I'm using gestures that I might hear from the Caribbean, but in a very different language. And those gestures might be instrument choices, and other musical devices such as rhythms and folk melodies. But also, I'm interested in incorporating extra musical ideas. So in this piece, this Carnival Bat and the Moon, it's called, I've come up with a scenario, if you like, and it's of a carnival bat costumed person. At first, it's an evocation of an evening, and you'll hear a violin being a mosquito, because there's lots of mosquitoes in Trinidad. a trombone evoking maybe the sounds of a frog. The other string instruments playing ostinato figures that may be evocative of insect sounds, to try to get a flavour, if you like, of a Caribbean evening from an outsider's point of view. So that's my starting point. So perhaps we just hear the introduction of this, just up to where the bat sings. So that was an imagined scenario, if you like, of a carnival bat costumed person trying to fly, and then I sort of imagined a scenario when later on the moon shines and there's the magical transformation and the person actually becomes a bat and flies away. So that is a very much a fictitious, imagined idea. But I've also tried to base my pieces on things that I find in Trinidad, a bit like a magpie, I suppose.